Welcome to the Business Finance Podcast, brought to you by the Best Finance Group, bringing you expert insights, real-life case studies, interviews, and the latest industry news. Join us every week as we cover everything you need to know about business finance. Welcome to the Business Finance Podcast. Today's special guest is Chris Spratling, entrepreneur, business coach, and author of the Amazon bestseller, The Exit Roadmap. So Chris has owned, bought, and sold multiple seven-figure businesses. He's helped countless founders prepare for the biggest financial event of their lives, selling their company. From startups to FTSE-listed firms, family-run businesses, private equity deals, Chris really has seen it all. So today, Chris runs the business advisory firm Chalk Hill Blue, where he helps owners unlock the value in their business, accelerate business growth, and exit with clarity and confidence. So Chris, thank you very, very much. Bit of a long intro there, but you've done a lot. So,
Thanks very much for having me on. It's great to be here with you today.
Yeah, it's fantastic to have you on. So I've read this, and I really think this is the best book that I've ever read on selling your business. There's not that many, really, especially based in the UK.
Indeed.
So this talks to UK business owners. Obviously, you've got Built to Sell as a pretty well-known book.
Indeed.
I told you earlier I actually read The Barbarians at the Gate, which took about 3 months. It's like that. So that was a grind. This is just fascinating. So this should be government issue, really. I think if someone's starting up a business, say, right, read that first.
You're very kind.
So I genuinely mean that. It's fantastic. So do you want to just give us very, very quickly just an overview of how you came to write the book and just touch on your many years of experience?
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure I'm one of those people who fits into that neat slot of always had a book within me. But having spent the last 25, 30 years, as you say, buying and selling businesses of our own, helping clients do the same thing, what you come to realize very quickly is that so many deals fall over, mainly because the seller hasn't got the business in the right shape to be truly saleable. And, when you think that over 80% of SME business owners' wealth is suggested to be tied up in their business, for all those years of blood, sweat, toil to come to nothing, it is fairly disheartening. And so the primary reason for writing the book really was to help SME business owners in particular really avoid all of the pitfalls and hopefully realise the full value of all of those years of hard work through hopefully a book that simplifies the complex and gives them some real insight in what they need to do to prepare both themselves and indeed their business for sale, and ultimately in a way that optimises the value of that business. So that's the motivation, really.
Absolutely. And it's called the roadmap for a reason, because it goes through every single stage, beautifully written, I think. And, I've worked in acquisition, especially in the finance side, but I've also been interested myself in buying and selling businesses. So I've been to courses, lots of courses. So I think I know quite a bit about acquisitions and how it all works, mergers and acquisitions. But every chapter I'm just reading through and thinking, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I didn't know that. And all the way through. So this could be easy, a 5, 6, 7 hour podcast, but you're a busy man, so we're not going to...
We'll try not to bore your listeners with that amount of time.
Yeah, but so enough flattery now, Chris. We're going to get into the nitty gritty now then. So we're going to look at one of the first chapters. It was all about what does success look like. So that's, I think, I love this. So if you can just talk to us about what people should be thinking of at the start.
Yeah, so it depends how you define success for me, but what you tend to find is most of the stuff that exists for people to consume and educate themselves on is all about how you prepare the business for sale. And actually, I think one of the things we've learned over many years, both personally and professionally, is that there's a vital first step long before you start thinking about what you need to do with the business. And that's all around seller readiness. So in other words, what does success look like for you personally, as a business owner, as a head of a family, perhaps, and equally, what does it look like financially? So I think it's important to understand, what you need and what you ultimately want from a sale, because unless you know that, you're going to build your business in such a way that it doesn't actually tick those personal goals properly. And arguably, you'll probably sell to the wrong sort of buyer. Right. So personal or seller readiness is a vital first step, really, before you go the next important step into preparing the business for optimum value at sale.
Yeah, because many people won't even be thinking about this until they come to the end and think, now it's time to sell it. And that's the thing. And a lot of people, that I think you mentioned on another interview that I saw recently, that a lot of these people think their business is their pension.
Yes, if you go back to what I said a few seconds ago, if 80% roughly of an SME business owner's wealth is tied up in their business, they think that's their pension. The risks of not getting optimum value for that business and exiting it through some form of sale process, whether that be, an MBO, whether it be an EOT, whether it be a sale to a third party that's in the trade, a strategic buyer or a financial buyer, you've really got to understand what's important to you personally, in order to structure that business in such a way as to be attractive to hopefully more than one type of acquirer, and ultimately create real competition to get the value at the end of the process.
Absolutely. And you don't want to be in a stage where perhaps, God forbid, you're having to sell because of ill health, and all of a sudden you're realising all these things as you look into it. Actually, the business is nowhere near ready to sell.
Yeah, and I think, the most disheartening conversation I have, and it's one I have quite regularly, is when, we meet a business owner who says, can you help me ready my business for sale? And then we start to talk about, well, what's your timeline? And they say, well, within the next 6 months. And as we'll, I'm sure, touch on in a bit, the process is longer than that. Most businesses are not sale ready, even if they are run really well, because they're often run for maximum earnings or drawings on behalf of the shareholders, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're run and structured in such a way as to make them saleable. And so sometimes we have to unravel a lot of things in order to put the business in a position where it's optimized for sale purposes. And going back to your earlier question, it takes time, and really the ideal, albeit hackneyed, sort of phrase is, it's never too early to start readying your business for sale. Unfortunately, most of us don't do that simply because we don't know what that means. And so it's never too early to start planning. So if some of your listeners are thinking about the fact that, well, this doesn't really apply to me because I've got no plans to sell my business anytime soon. Actually, I think it does apply, because you don't want to spend loads of time, money and effort unraveling some of that stuff just because you don't know this. So I would always urge SME business owners in particular to really think hard about their longer term plans and how they make sure they give themselves options as the years go by.
For more videos about buying and selling businesses, and to learn more about funding an acquisition or an MBO, why not explore our channel and subscribe so you never miss any future episodes. Okay, Chris, so the next subject then, the next question, you talk in the book about the 10 drivers of business value.
Sure.
So let's talk now about what a business owner can do to get their business ready, but I suppose more importantly for the acquirer, what they're going to be looking for, what some of the red flags are going to be. So what we can fix and the type of things that you fix for your clients as we're starting to go through that process now of getting that business ready to go to market.
Real value is created by addressing the 10 value drivers that we talk about in the book. Many business owners will have run a business successfully for a number of years, and they'll have a strong history of growth. And that's probably the first key driver of value. But it's much more than that, because when a business owner sells, that's essentially the end of their journey. But for the acquirer, it's just the start of their journey. So again, it's important to develop strategies that can be then shared with potential acquirers as to how the business will continue to grow and scale, so that they can themselves get a decent return on their investment. It's worth remembering that they always have options. They can always invest their money in other ways, in other businesses. So, in positioning our business for sale, we've got to make sure there is a strong growth story attached to it as well. Business owners also will want to work on their working capital, or their cash flow as often it's referred to make sure that the business is structured in such a way as to be able to demonstrate strong cash collections and working capital within the business, so that the acquirer is not going to get any nasty surprises in terms of having to shore up the business with increases in capital and so on and so forth. And as I said, they have choices. And so having a business with strong points of differentiation is going to be particularly important to acquirers, knowing that they're not just buying a Me Too business.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I think there are other key drivers that come under the umbrella of, I suppose, over-reliance. So the one that most business owners would be aware of is a business that isn't overly reliant on them, the owner or the founder of that business.
Yeah.
But it equally trickles down to the management team and making sure that the business isn't overly reliant on any one or two individuals within the senior management team that are going to be left, because, of course, an acquirer is going to be worried that they're not tied in or not committed to the business with the change of ownership and so on and so forth. And it equally applies to customers and suppliers. So, red flags will go up in due diligence, if not before, if an acquirer spots that actually a disproportionate amount of the sales are overly reliant on one or two customers, or indeed that the business has got fragility in it because it's totally reliant on two or three key suppliers. So addressing all of those things is quite important, well before you ever bring the business to sale, because they're not quick things to remedy if you are running a business that has those particular nuances in the here and now. There's also about the quality of revenue that you have in the business. So strong growth might look attractive at first glance, but again, if it's all single transaction sales revenue, that's not as attractive and not necessarily as secure in the minds of an acquirer compared to a business that's got strong repeatable revenues in the form of subscriptions, for instance, and so on and so forth. So all of those things are quite important. And again, another key driver that often is overlooked in a lot of businesses and also not sold to get maximum value very well is just what intellectual property exists in a business. And, it can be a real point of differentiation if you can demonstrate during the sale process that you've got really strong IP and it gives you, real strength in terms of competitive advantage in the market because of what you've got in terms of intellectual property. So all of those value drivers are incredibly important. What you'll find typically is that most businesses won't tick all 10, but the challenge is to try and tick as many as possible. Because if you think about it this way, for every one of those value drivers that you have in place, it's putting water into your value bucket. But for every one that's missing, it's draining water out of that value bucket. So the importance of getting these value drivers addressed and maximised is critically important for any seller wanting to optimise the value of their business.
Absolutely fantastic. Great advice. It's funny because we always talk about the reliance on key customers. But actually, until I read the book, I didn't think about the reliance of key suppliers. What a great point that is.
Equally important. Equally important.
And I think you've said this to me before as well, is when somebody's looking to buy your business, they're not that interested in what you've done previously. Obviously they are, but they're buying you for what you're going to do in the future.
It's future prospects. That's what they're buying into, because you've already banked the benefits and the cash that comes with those previous successes. So it's much more about the future.
It's selling the picture and being ready to this is how we're going to deliver your future and how you're going to grow that business.
Exactly right.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. So Chris, why do most business owners leave money on the table when they sell?
It's a great question. Fundamentally, I think it comes down to under preparation,
right,
and a lack of knowledge more than anything. I think there's some really interesting stats that are bandied around corporate finance businesses, business brokers, etc., and I suppose some of the wider press. And what you tend to see with those statistics is quite alarming, and actually if we knew these things in advance we'd probably do something about it, but typically less than 20% of businesses that are listed for sale will sell within a 12-month period, and well over 60% will never sell at all. For those businesses that do sell, over 50% of sellers will tell you within 12 months of selling that they are dissatisfied with the outcome. Now, most of that's around the value that they actually got from selling the business. And of that 50%, nearly 3/4 will tell you that with the benefit of hindsight, they wish they hadn't sold it at all or to who they sold it to.
Yeah.
And so it really is about planning and preparation. And it's about understanding that selling a business is not just about finding a buyer for your business. It's about finding a buyer that's eager to pay a premium.
I like that. Very good. So here's a common question. How long do you think it would say on average it takes to prepare a business for sale? And then how long would you say it would take to actually go through the process and make a sale?
Okay. It's clearly a generic answer I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
But from years of experience, typically what we find is in order to put all of those key value drivers in place and make sure a business is truly ready to go to market and sell for an optimum price, we would typically estimate 18 months to 24 months to get that business in the right shape to go to market. That includes getting the seller ready and understanding exactly what they need, exactly what they want, so as to position the business exactly as it needs to be to attract the right sort of buyers. And then the sale process itself, I think you probably allow 3 months or so to put your deal team together, although clients working with us, we're working towards that all the way through that first period I talked about of 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
And then from the moment the business is marketed for sale by the corporate finance team or the broker that you've enlisted the help and support of in an ideal world, I think you can typically expect 9 to 12 months for the whole process to, roll through and get to a point where you've signed on the dotted line, you've had your first check on completion. But of course, it can go longer than that in terms of handover periods. It's very common today for there to be deferred or contingent consideration that comes over the next 1 or 2 years after completion, with, as I say, handover periods that might be anywhere between 6 and 24 months again. So it really depends on how you define how long does the process take. Yeah. But it's not quick. It's definitely more complicated than selling a house, as some people might draw that analogy. And there can be many twists and turns. And again, if you look at the reasons why most deals fall over in due diligence, it's due to that lack of preparation. So one of the things I think we pride ourselves on at Chalk Hill Blue in particular is making sure that we go through all of the things a potential acquirer might dig into and have issues with, to, if you like, eradicate the skeletons in the closet way before we take the business to market, and to give us the best possible chance of sailing through due diligence without any major hiccups.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, we've worked with some of your clients, and we know that when we get someone referred to us by you, all the paperwork's there, everything you need, it's there at hand. It's you can see the process that you're going through. Some of these businesses have been going for sort of 10 years, and I don't know how, at what point you joined or you got involved, but you can just see the difference. And you're talking about not just turnover growth, you're talking about margin growth. So we know that your clients,
being
prepared, as if they were.
You're very sweet.
No, it's true.
It's true to say that, invariably we tend to work with established businesses. We're often not the first foray those businesses have had into third-party support. So we're generally working with established businesses. But what glues them all together, even though they all come from all sorts of different sectors, is that the owners are still highly ambitious to scale those businesses, and a number of them are keen to scale with a view to a potential exit. Yeah. What we do, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, is we put a great deal of effort into developing those key metrics so that they're all going in the right direction, so as to ensure that those businesses are attractive to a wide variety of potential buyers. So as I said, it could be a trade buyer, it could be more of a strategic buyer who one or two steps up or below that acquisition target in terms of the value chain. For some of the bigger businesses, it could well be a financial buyer like a PE house. And they will all value businesses in different ways. And our job is to make sure that, as I say, the business is positioned to appeal to as many of those different types of buyers, whilst also making sure that they're robust in their portrayal of particularly their financial numbers, but equally through things like legal audits, making sure all of the legal aspects of a business are well and truly documented and correct. So as to make sure that, whether it be financial, legal or operational due diligence, the business, as I say, will sail through that process with the minimum of pain.
And there's things like you say in the book about even checking your insurances. So, okay, this is what you pay for your insurance. Is your insurance covering everything that it should be? And even like assets, okay, you've got these assets, we'll want to have a look at those. There's a lot more to it.
I mean, you probably won't be surprised, but, there are numerous businesses we come across, some of which we work with even now today, who when we first met them, they had lots of assets. There was no asset register, and if you haven't got that, how can you sell the business and ask someone to value that if you don't have a way of communicating with them exactly what you own?
I must say that was one of my favourite chapters, actually, looking at not only are we going through the 5 different types of buyer, but looking through the eyes of each of those buyers to what they're looking for, and I just thought it was absolutely fascinating. You have to read the book to get the full insight into it. But I've never seen it like that before. If they're a family office, what they're looking for, private equity, what they're looking for, the strategic buyer, the financial buyer. It was fascinating.
They will all have different objectives, different motivations, and different ways of valuing a business. They will put different levels of value on the same aspects from another type of buyer. So it's important to understand that and understand how you want to, as I say, position that business when you do bring it to market, so as to appeal to the right sorts of buyer. Again, different types of acquirers may not be attractive to certain sellers. All deals are in reality a reflection of 4 key things. So clearly there's the consideration. So how much am I going to get if I sell my business to this party? How is that deal structured and does that work for me? So, as I said, rare today to get all of the money on day one. A few times it happens, but not very often these days. So, how is the remainder paid to me? Is it just simply deferred consideration that is guaranteed? Is it contingent? And again, over how long a period? Does that work for me in terms of my personal goals and motivations? The third aspect of any deal really is the timing of the deal. So how long is it going to take me to get this thing over the line? How quickly does the acquirer want to move? How quickly do I want to move? Is there any alignment between ourselves in that particular case? And then equally for many buyers, particularly those business owners who've been running their business for a number of years, have perhaps got some staff who've been with them for lengthy periods of time, who've clearly contributed to the growth and success of the business. The acquirer's future plans for the business and indeed those key members of staff is often a real driver. And we've had many an instance over the years where, clients have chosen not to sell to, in fact, the highest bidder because actually they weren't convinced that they would look after their team, for instance, appropriately, or they didn't like what they were planning to do with the business.
It was their legacy, their brand, something they've built up.
Absolutely
if
right.
It's just going to be amalgamated into another company and that brand is going to disappear. They can't.
And then equally, we've had clients who've said, I don't really care. I just want the maximum money. Now, everybody's different.
Of course.
But one of our jobs is to tease that out of clients so they're clear on that, even before they enlist the help and support of a corporate finance team or a broker to help them sell that, so that we can target the marketing at the right sort of potential acquirers.
Well, Chris, I could talk to you all day about this stuff, but I know you've got things to do. So there might be some business owners out there watching this and perhaps still not sure where they are perhaps in that journey and how ready they are. So what would you suggest to anyone out there who's watching this and thinking, I wonder how my business would score or rate if there was something if there was perhaps a survey that I could take?
Sure. Well, firstly, what I'd say is buy the book. But actually, if you haven't got the time or haven't perhaps got the inclination right now, one of the things we have created alongside the book is a free survey tool.
Right.
So we've created a survey called the Exit Readiness Survey.
Brilliant.
It'll take your viewers probably 7 or 8 minutes to complete.
Right.
And off the back of it, they'll get a personalised report of about 15, 16 pages that will take them through 10 or 11 different areas of readiness and allow them to see exactly where they might need to make some tweaks or changes within their business right now, as well as might need to get themselves a little clearer personally around those seller readiness bits that we talked about earlier. But it's completely free, and actually, knowing that we can't help everybody, it'd be great if some of your viewers, were to utilise this free tool and get some value from it. It would be a great outcome for us.
Brilliant. We'll appreciate that. So we'll put the link in the comments there. So like you're saying, even that. I mean, from what you said in this interview and from what you say in the book, you might take some time. It might take 12, 18 months to really prepare your business, but you could be doubling or tripling what you actually walk away with at the end, whenever that may be. So it's worth putting that time in. So just take the Exit Readiness Survey, have a look, and put your comments in the box below. We'll sort of go through and we'll answer every question that we get. And if someone wants to get in touch with you at Chalk Hill Blue directly, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Either log on to the website, which again I'm sure we can put the URL in the comments box, and just fill in one of the contact us boxes, or alternatively, if someone wants to, by all means, connect with me on LinkedIn or just send me a DM, and we'll do our best to respond quickly.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, I just want to say thank you very much for your time today and sharing those very valuable insights. It's clear that whether you're just starting out or scaling your business or seriously thinking about an exit, this book, again, The Exit Roadmap, is an absolute classic and you should read it. So we're going to give away 10 free copies. Thank you to Chris for giving us some copies to give away. So again, we'll put the details in the description. So just let us know. Just send us an email with the title Exit Strategy to info@thebestgroup.co.uk. That's it. If you're interested in raising finance for whether it's an MBO, an MBI, contact us at The Best Group. We'll surely give you some guidance on that. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please just like and subscribe and share it with anyone you know that runs a business that might be interested in this very, very valuable content from Chris. So that's it for this week. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Go and get your copy. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Pleasure.